Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and we are so thrilled that you have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 16 going on 17 novels of suspense. My brand new book comes out in less than a month. I can't believe it. It is called All This Could Be Yours, about a debut bestselling author on book tour, a book tour that turns into a cross-country cat and mouse chase that has the author running for her life. That comes out September 9th. No pressure. It's just my career, and I hope you will love this book. Speaking of loving this book, though, we are here today to talk to Samantha Downing, whose brand new book is out today. It's called Too Old for This. And I am laughing because, first of all, look at the cover. A woman with gray hair, with black leather gloves, and holding a hammer, and it is instantly hilarious. This is Samantha Downing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. She's in the Bay Area. Let me just quickly say, this is unlike any book I've ever read. I don't know, and we'll talk about this in a minute. I don't know how anybody can make a serial killer be laugh out loud funny, but this is the voiciest book in the world. Luann says, I love this book, in all caps, and I love this book too, Luann. Susie Baldwin says, hi, Hank and Samantha. When I look over here, I'm looking at the comments, and look at all of you here. Already Sherry Steuben and Shannon Hansen and Robin Stull and Luann is here, and Susie Baldwin. Renee is here. This is great. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I know there are many more to come. So Samantha joining us from the Bay Area. Happy Pub Day. Does it ever get old, Pub Day?
No, it doesn't. There's always so much time goes into writing and editing and everything. And finally the day is here. So it's always exciting. It's always a little nervous, a little everything.
There's so much buzz about this book, and I want to talk about that in a minute. And Randy says, I've been looking forward to this interview in this book. That's so nice. Oh, Luann says, can't wait to do this for our Book Buzz Book Club. It is so buzzy, Luann. Let me ask you, though, just about this cover. When you opened your email and saw the JPEG of this cover, what did you think?
I thought it was perfect. They actually sent me 3 different pictures to look at, and they were all very different, but this one really shows what the book is about. I mean, there's no mistaking it when you look at this cover, that it's an older woman who is clearly violent. She's hiding a hammer behind her back with the black leather glove. And I just thought, I love covers where there's no mistaking what the book is about. You're not going to get confused. When you pick this book up, you know exactly what it is. And I love covers like that. And I thought it was just perfect because the hammer is iconic in the book. And Lottie is an older woman with gray hair. So it just worked. I just loved it.
Margaret in backstage is saying it's giving Helen Mirren. And wouldn't that be fun to see Helen Mirren in this role? She would absolutely devour it. That is great. Let me take one more minute before we go on to talk to Samantha Downing to welcome you to A Mighty Blaze. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze, wow, did you pick a great day to come, because we are talking about Too Old for This, just out today from Samantha Downing from Berkeley. We are so excited about this. A Mighty Blaze was started at the beginning of the pandemic. You know this, 5 years ago, to keep us reading new books and discovering new books and talking to authors and just sort of keeping our writing community together. And let me say that we're giving away a copy of Too Old for This. Well, we're not. Samantha is, because I'm keeping this. I am not letting this out of my little house. But leave a question or a comment in the chat, and we will draw at the end of the show. We will spin the wheel of fun for Too Old for This. So just applause or general adulation or what you think about a 75-year-old serial killer as the main character, that is absolutely fantastic. And what a tour de force. Samantha Downing, let me read you her bio just for a second in case you somehow don't know. Samantha Downing is an internationally best-selling thriller author. Her novels include My Lovely Wife, again, iconic cover, He Started It, For Your Own Good, and A Twisted Love Story. Her debut novel, My Lovely Wife, was nominated for the Edgar, ITW, and Macavity Awards in the US, the CWA Award in the UK, and was the winner of the Prix de l'Actrice Award in France, and well-deserved. This is, as I said, such a tour de force of voice and story and character. Can you tell us a little bit about what the book is about, and then we'll talk about what the book is about?
Sure. It is about a 75-year-old retired serial killer who is forced out of retirement when a docu-journalist comes knocking on her door and basically threatens to blow up her little life. And that's what the book is about, a retired serial killer coming out of retirement.
And the idea that the main character, Lottie, is 75 and a serial killer. Can you just tell us a little bit about the genesis of that? How did that idea show up in your mind? And did you discard it instantly or embrace it? Talk a little bit about that process.
No, I actually discarded a different idea. I was writing a different book with a younger protagonist. And at the time, I had some health problems, and it had really affected my mobility, and I was waiting for surgery. And I was very angry at my body at that time and not able to live the life that I was used to living. And I sort of took all that anger and created this character of Lottie, who had her own aging issues and her own body issues and her own frustrations in trying to adapt to a new reality of technology and science and all sorts of things. So all of my frustration went straight into Lottie, and that's pretty much how she was created. And I thought she would be the perfect character to carry my weight at the time. And I wrote this while I was pretty much laid up and waiting for surgery.
So she carried your weight, as you say, carried your anger, carried your frustration, but she also carries your voice, because I have never read a more unique voice than Lottie. It's almost as if she is absolutely talking to us. Talk a little bit, though, about when you think about somebody being 75. I mean, I am 75. And if you talk about that, a person that age being a serial killer, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of past that you had to get through to come up with her backstory. How did you learn about Lottie?
Well, I'm a pantser, so I don't plot and I don't outline. So I really created her as I was writing. I knew she was a retired serial killer. I knew she had been accused of murder at one time, but clearly she's not in prison. And the details I work out as I write it. And the thing about a woman that age, or anybody that age at 75, she's done this before. Like, she has a very been there, done that kind of an attitude. And she is very funny in her head. Her inner monologue was so much fun to write. And I think that's where a lot of the humor comes from, because she presents herself one way to the world, but in her head, she's thinking something completely different. And it's not, when you're talking about murder, it's not even so much the killing, it's the getting away with it. That's where the difficulty is. And that's where all the work comes in making sure you've done all the things you need to do to not get caught. And she knows that this has to be done. It's just a matter of doing it and executing it.
I mean, you can see, you all, just from what Samantha is saying right now, how funny that is, because Lottie that is one thing about being 75. It has been there, done that. And you've had all the experiences of all the times, well, some people have, of all the times that you've been investigated about whether you're a murderer, and you know what works and you know what didn't work and what people can get away with and what they can't. And fewer things are surprises. But the other thing that Lottie has going for her, and that we see so fully, is that she knows how people would think that a 75-year-old would behave. And so she just does that on the outside. But inside, she's a different person. And you so gorgeously allow us to have insight into this duality of her thinking, her manipulative mind, her cleverness for whatever it's worth, her experience. Was it fun to write that?
It was a lot of fun. The scenes that were especially fun to write are the scenes where she is manipulating other people, and the reader can see that, and they can see when she's lying and when she's not, because the reader has already been inside her head and knows the truth. And then they see her present it to other people a different way, and how she thinks on the fly as she gets more information. So she's someone who would have sat and thought about all the possible outcomes and tried to prepare for it and tried to prepare her stories. And, you know, when you're lying that much, you have to be able to keep your stories straight, which is another thing she has to really work at, having, you know, not as good of a memory as she did when she was 30 or whatever. So she's very, once she gets going, she's very good at what she does, which is why she's not in prison. Yes,
And it's so much fun to think about you writing this as a pantser, as not knowing what's happening next, because because Lottie is so nimble at her manipulation and so nimble at her persuasion and so nimble at her giving of reasons why something might have happened or misdirecting people. But I keep imagining you, Samantha, having to come up with that on the fly as you do, just like she does. Did you laugh when you were writing this? It must have. It's. I know writing a book is hard. This one had to be a little bit fun.
It is. It was a lot of fun. The book was really a lot of fun to write, and it was a great escape for me. And it was, I just really embraced who Lottie was and just ran with it as much as I could. I just thought, okay, well, this is her deal. She's a serial killer, and now she has to get away with murder. Here we go. And no apologies for it. The whole book, of course, is from her perspective, and there's no multiple viewpoints. So you are in her head the whole time, and you're just going on this ride with her.
And I wonder, you're not 75, not even close.
No.
So put yourself in the head of a 75-year-old person. What was that like? Because you had to realize or think about or research or however you did it, that a 75-year-old woman can be invisible, that people expect her to be a certain way. How do you think about, and how did you realize how society looks at someone that age and decides what they're supposed to be? And it's hilarious and it's smart, but it's also a little bit heartbreaking.
Yeah. And I think it is when you're a 75-year-old woman and you're living alone. The average lifespan in this country is 78 for women. So maybe you're thinking about that, maybe you're not. And again, 75-year-old women run the gamut of what kind of health they're in, what kind of condition they're in, how active they are, just like 30-year-olds. 30-year-olds run the gamut as well. So I'm taking a woman who was in moderately good health. She didn't have any serious illnesses, but you know, she was achy and she had arthritis and she had starting to have a little memory problems and but she didn't have a life-threatening illness or anything. So I sort of took someone in the average, in the middle, and thought, well, if I were 75 and living alone and was trying to think about my next decade and where I wanted to live and how I wanted to be, these are the things I would think about, what Lottie was thinking about. At the same time, she doesn't always present herself the way that she really is. She presents herself a little more forgetful, maybe a little more broken down. She wants people to see her as a weak old woman so that they do not suspect her. So she can use that to her advantage, those perceptions of being a little old woman who couldn't possibly have done this or couldn't possibly do this. So she sort of takes advantage of assumptions that are made, and at the same time instead of getting insulted by them, she uses them.
Yeah, instead of getting insulted by them, she embraces them. And I think that's one of the things that make this book so much fun. We're talking about Too Old for This by Samantha Downing, which stars a 75-year-old retired sort of serial killer. I'm wondering, sort of psychologically, can a serial killer retire? I mean, I wonder how hard it would be for someone who can bring themselves to kill several people to stop doing that, to stop looking at murder as the solution. Did you do any, I mean, I know this sounds a little bit serious, but did you do any research about how someone who is a serial killer thinks? Or is this just how you feel that they might think?
No, there was one of the famous serial killers who had retired, and I can't remember now if it was the Green River Killer is the one that's coming to mind. But I think they found him through DNA eventually, and he fundamentally was retired. Like, he hadn't killed in a long time. He wasn't in great physical shape. And he basically said, it's too much work. It's tiring to go out and do this. And sort of like most people give up, going out late at night and going to nightclubs because it's just not worth the trouble anymore, right? Or doing things like having big date nights or something that would take a lot of effort that you just think, oh, it's not working anymore. So it's I was thinking of it in that way, that she would do that, and she kind of likens it to that. But I have read there was one that I know of that who specifically had basically retired from serial killing because that same urge he had when he was young, it faded over time, the way the urges sometimes do.
Another situation that happens with age. Speaking of situations, you all, we just disappeared. I don't know if you saw that on your computer.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Everybody has very iffy internet today. It might be 4,000 degrees here in Boston, and Samantha is in the Bay Area. Who knows about transmission, but we will persevere. So whether you see us or not, don't worry. We're going to be here. We are not going away. I also think that there's a certain mental state where killing someone as the solution to a problem is so outrageous. I mean, it's sad and scary and terrifying. But for Lottie, it's like, well, what are you going to do? I can't have this happen, and so I need to come out of retirement. How did you? Let me put it this way: how did you make us love her so much when she's a murderer?
Yeah, well, the one thing I tried to do is I did give her a very full life. She is a grandmother, she is a mother, she has a full social circle of people, and none of these are people she would kill. It's, she's got a compartmentalized life, and it's separate. So she is she has a regular life, and serial killers would fundamentally have to do this if you want to fit in. You can't just go live in a cabin in the woods and think nobody's going to notice when you come out of your lair. So she lives in the community, and I think that she's very clear about why she kills, and a lot of it has to do with the way people have judged her.
Yes.
And I think that women particularly can relate to this. As women, we are judged all our lives for so many things, and the way we look and the way we dress and what we say and how we act. And it's a constant barrage of judgment. And she particularly had it as a single mother and as a woman who lived alone, and now as an older woman who lives alone. And when it gets her at the wrong moment, the wrong person at the wrong moment, and the right circumstances where she could get away with killing them, is really when it happens. And this one in particular is a little bit different, because when someone comes and knocks on her door, she has a life that she really likes, and it's all going to disappear if this person exposes her. So she's kind of in protection mode.
Yes,
at this point in her life.
And we understand that we are trying to protect her. Too, Luann says, when you get old like me, people get on your nerves. If the wrong person knocks on your door, that person just has to be dealt with in some way, or what that person's goal, I should say, has to be dealt with in some way. It's also kind of hilariously a real study in female empowerment and coming into one's own as a woman. Superly exaggerated, of course, because we're not all serial killers. But, I was so taken by what you were saying about how judged women are and how invisible women especially become when they're older. And this is just sort of fighting back from that.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And it's very personal to her and more subtle than, I guess, if she were more of a vigilante who was going after bad men or something. She's killing people that are doing things to her personally, and that's how she takes it. And so that person, just has to go.
I mean, it's funny because we love Dexter. We love the Jackal and Day of the Jackal. And it's really a tour de force in character building to allow readers to understand the motivation of someone who kills people. The jackal does it for a living, and Dexter does it because he's getting rid of the bad guys, and she does it because someone is trying to hurt her or harm her or stop her from living her life. Did you do any kind of study or think about bad guys as good guys?
Yeah, there's certainly, especially these days, a lot of examples of anti-heroes out there, and they're primarily men, and there aren't as many women. I mean, I can name three off the top of my head that are the three biggest shows ever on television: Tony Soprano, Don Draper from Mad Men, Walter White from Breaking Bad. They're all anti-heroes. They all are bad men or have become bad men throughout the show. And you could not make that show with a female lead, with a female Tony Soprano, with a female Don Draper. Nobody would make that TV show. So I think it's a lot harder. Women are still put in that good girl, bad girl thing. And the gray area is something women are starting now to break out of, I think, and I hope. But we're only allowed to go so far. And so with Lottie, I just went all in and just let the cards go where they are. And either you like her or you don't. Maybe you hate her. I don't know. But it was my attempt to make an anti-hero female as the central character.
That's interesting, because I'm thinking about Killing Eve, and then I'm thinking about other shows where the female character is as powerful as Tony Soprano or Don Draper or Walter White. And I never thought about this before. This is incredibly revealing that there aren't really things like that. Was that a conscious choice for you from the beginning? Sherry says, breaking the serial killer glass ceiling. That's
right. That's great.
Applause. Congratulations. Was that a goal, or was that a result of your writing?
I don't know that I was thinking of it that way, but I was just thinking of a little old woman and sort of an elderly lady and what she could bring to this genre. And I wasn't quite thinking of it in those terms, but I think it became that once I got more into her motives and why she's coming from a distinctly female point of view. And her reasons for killing are because of things that primarily happen to women and the way that they're treated. So a story with a little old man would be a different story.
A story with a little old man would be a very different story. And I love how you've captured that in this, because we sort of, we're so on the train with her. We so root for her. We so want her to succeed and be strong enough to protect herself. And I think about sometimes in writing novels that, you stated a very powerful theme. As Sherry was saying about breaking the glass ceiling for women in a place that hasn't been broken before. And sometimes in writing a novel, you start with just like, that's a cool story. And as the book evolves, especially the way we write as just pantsing,
mm-hmm.
sometimes a really powerful theme emerges that we didn't plan to write. Does that happen to you when you realize, oh my golly, this is really about female empowerment. This is really about how the world sees women in such a different way. And why is that?
Yeah, definitely. It's not something I start with when I write the book. And I think it was even something my agent said after she read the book, because I was really thinking about this being a thriller about aging and about dealing with aging and trying to do the same things you used to do before and having to adjust to be able to do them. And in her case, it's killing, but it might be something. And so I was trying to capture that, how you try to adapt and be that same person you were when you were young, and how do you go about it? And I was thinking of it more along those lines, and then the motivations came out of why she kills and why. And once I got out of the mechanics of her getting it done, I really had to dig into why she was doing it. So it sort of all came together in the end.
I think that's incredibly fascinating, because that's really part of the magic of writing, that you're telling a story that then in your subconscious evolves into something else when you didn't really even know that it was going on. And the other thing about being a woman of a certain age is that from the outside, people see you as whatever age you are, 60 or 70 or 80. But inside, you still feel like the same person you were when you were 20. And that's something that, everyone has difficulty dealing with when you look at yourself in the mirror and you think, oh, yikes, I look like that. So I think you handled that so beautifully and delicately. I mean, the book is, it's fun, it's fast paced, it's propulsive, it's hilarious, it's like super suspenseful, but it also and we're talking about Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. And don't forget to leave a question or comment in the chat, because in about 5 minutes, we're going to take your questions and then we'll spin the wheel of fun to win. It's also very touching, this novel. Tears came to my eyes from time to time, because it is very telling about, and forgive me, my English teacher will kill me, but sort of telling about the human condition. That we're all going to get some level of old, and our lives will change in some way. But do our hearts and minds stay the same?
Yeah, and that was intentional. I mean, in my mind, the story, I don't know that the story in my head comes out exactly the way it's supposed to be on the page, but that was all intentional, that there is a heartbreaking aspect to it. And there are times when you think, okay, there's something I can never do again, because I'm just too old to do it. Like, for example, chances are I will never be in the Olympics. Like, I have no reason to ever be in the Olympics, but I don't even play a sport that's in the Olympics, but that's a door that is closed. Like, at my age, it's never, ever, ever going to happen. I will probably never run a marathon. I'm not even a runner. So it seems that these doors get shut when you get older, certainly from a physical standpoint. Other doors open, but
Yes.
there is that sort of realization you come to in your head where you're like, I am too old to do that. I would never be able to do that at this age.
And I so hear you about that. And it's not like we're disappointed that we're never going to throw a touchdown pass in an NFL game.
Right.
But we never will, we never will. And I remember some years ago, when I was a child, I took ballet. And some years ago, I thought, I should go back and do ballet again. And my body just wouldn't do that. My brain could envision what it was supposed to do, but my body would not do that. And there was nothing that I could possibly have ever done to make it do that. And there's a page that you turn. There's a page that we turn in our lives that can be regretful, or it can just be like, now let's see what the next chapter turns out to be, right? And Lottie's next chapter turns out to be incredibly interesting. Do you remember the first time someone else read this book, when it was finished, what they said to you about it?
Yeah, I think it was my agent and my editor, and they really loved it. And they really thought Lottie was great. So yeah, I do have a writer's critique group, but they sort of read it in pieces. And then my agent and editor read it all at once. And so they loved it. So that was great. That's always a good sign.
And I think that, and we have so many people saying they can't wait for it. Susie Baldwin says, sounds great. I look forward to reading Too Old for This. And everybody's saying, I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait. Hey, Betty Fellows. Shannon says, I need to read it ASAP. And those people who are commenting in the chat about wanting to read it are all ages. These are not just women of a certain age who are saying they want to read it. This book will appeal to women of all ages. And men, too, will get a huge insight from it. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I mean, I think we all know, I'm Gen X, so I have aging parents. And so I think, and if you're the next gen down or 2 gens down, you've got grandparents. And so I think that it's time we acknowledge that whole demographic that we try not to talk about and for so long. And it comes up sporadically in literature. I mean, certainly there was Agatha Christie, Miss Marple, and there have been older female sleuths in the genre in the past, but I think it's really become popular in the forefront on TV and in books, and that there's this whole demographic that can be highly entertaining and interesting and insightful to delve into.
Oh, exactly. Whether it's Tess Gerritsen's novel or Richard Osman's novel, all those things. I remember in 2005, when I wrote my very first book, 2005, and I had my main character, Charlotte McNally, a reporter, an aging reporter, and she was 55 in the book. And I remember my agent loved the book, loved it, loved it, loved it. And she said, but how old is Charlotte really? And I said, well, she's 55. And my agent said, oh, that's too old. That's too old. And she made me make her be 36. And that was a big moment for me. And now I say to her, see, we should have left her at 35. I would have been so ahead of our time. But that's proof of the evolution, of the embracing of how age has changed. I'm hoping, I personally am hoping very strongly that
Yeah.
that has.
Me too. I'm with you.
And how did you feel at the end of writing this?
I felt like that chapter of Lottie's life had come to a close, and I don't want to give anything away, but I just enjoyed writing her so much. And I think that for a writer, that's what you want. You want to be excited about what you're writing. You don't want it to feel like drudgery. And I've experienced both, and it's much better to be excited. And I think that really comes through in the writing. When you're excited about what you're writing, it shows up in the writing.
Oh, absolutely. I could not put this down. It is absolutely a tour de force of voice and point of view. I urge you all to run, click, 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 and get your copy of Too Old for This just out today. And now if you have some time, Samantha, let's take some questions from.
Absolutely.
Renee says, at what age does a person become a certain age? There you have a good question.
Well, technically, you are a senior citizen or considered elderly 65 and over. That's the technical definition. So I assume that might be what people are referring to when they say women of a certain age. I'm just going to assume that's retirement, quote unquote, retirement age or older.
That makes sense. That completely makes sense. These kinds of numerical delineations either can be sort of calculated statistics, or they can be sort of how you feel. And I think we kind of rely on that. That's a great question, Renee. Who else has a question? Patricia, hey, Patricia, there seems to be more books written about senior citizens solving murders. I love it because they're often funny. Why do you think that is? That is a really thought-provoking question.
I think it just depends on the tone of the book. There is, I think most of them are funny because they do talk about things that we expect them to talk about in a way. Like Lottie plays bingo, and that's a very expected thing. I think a very common thing. My grandma played bingo. That's where I got that from. And she was huge into bingo and had a whole set of friends and the whole thing. So when it comes to old people being funny, I never want to infantilize them or make them cutesy or anything. I want to treat them like adults, and I want them to act like adults when I write them. So I don't know why they're so funny, but there always seems to be a comedic element that's added to it. Maybe because and sometimes if it's on TV shows or in books or in movies, it's because that's what sells, and people want to see older people be funny, like Betty White. She was hilarious, or the Golden Girls.
You know what this is making me think of, and exactly what you're talking about. Maybe it's because at a certain age, you don't care what anybody thinks. You're just going to say and do whatever you want. There's no filter anymore, and we laugh because when people are so open and so honest and say the things that we wish we didn't, that we weren't too timid to say or too polite to say. But
that's true.
They're just going to say it because of, like Lottie and her experience. She does, what is there to lose at this point? She's
right.
just going to go for it. That's great. What a thought-provoking question. Let's do one more question and then we'll spin the wheel of fun. When you were pitching this, oh, Sylvia, brilliant. Was there a visual difference in male-female editor reaction?
I don't have a male editor, so I don't know what that reaction would be. My editor is female, my agent is female. So, but that would be interesting to know. I don't know. So, I don't have it. I don't know.
Well, when you all buy this book or win this book or take it out of the library, which we hope you will also do, give it to a man friend of yours and see what they say. I'd love to hear that. That's a really provocative question about how the book would be received by a male editor. Anyway, we've been talking about Too Old for This by Samantha Downing. A terrific. It's a solid murder mystery underneath this gorgeous, hilarious, innovative, unique story. So, I mean, really well done. And I don't mean to ignore that part of it. Can you talk about that for 1 second, that underneath this is a real murder mystery thriller?
Yeah, it is a thriller in the sense that the tension in it keeps rising and the threats keep increasing as the book goes. So the documentarian that shows up in the beginning, there's more to come after that. So for Lottie, it's like constantly being under attack a little bit. And so she has to keep fighting back in her way until we get to until she can get through it or not get through it. I won't give anything away, but at some point, justice has to be meted out somehow.
Somehow, and we'll leave it at that. It's a cat and mouse thriller, Too Old for This by Samantha Downing, starring one of the most unique main characters I have read in a very, very long time. Should we spin the wheel of fun to see who wins a copy of this book? So many wonderful people here today, and I love this part. Someone is going to win this book. The rest of you know what to do. Run, say it with me, click. And the winner is Renee Herskowitz, who joins us from Florida. Renee, congratulations on winning your copy of Too Old for This. You know what to do. Just shoot me an email, as they say, and we'll put that in the chat where you can email me, and we will get you via Samantha and her people a copy of Too Old for This. Again, I can't say it enough. The rest of you, run, click. Get your copy of Too Old for This. Before I say goodbye to Samantha, let me show you this one more time. All This Could Be Yours comes out September the 9th, available to pre-order right now. Absolutely no pressure. My book, One Wrong Word, is now available on ebook for $2.99, I think, for 2 more days. So run, click, get your copy of One Wrong Word if you haven't already read it yet. And next week, we will be hosting Polly Stewart. I'm getting the ring light out of this shiny cover. Polly Stewart for The Felon's Ball. Look at that cover, a martini and handcuffs, and what looks like a jail cell or something. You'll have to come next Tuesday at 4 p.m. ET and talk with Polly Stewart and find out about this book. Until then, congratulations on Pub Day, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk to you. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Thank you.
My pleasure, of course, and congratulations on a wonderful book. Samantha and I are both so happy that you joined us this afternoon. Thank you for being here, as always. Come back next Tuesday for another episode of Crime Time. I hope we will see you then, and remember, until then, it is always safe inside a book.